Alrighty everyone, welcome back to our latest video, and today I'm going to be dissecting the latest Splatoon 3 announcement trailer for the Nintendo Switch. And that is right guys, this is the announcement trailer and not a gameplay trailer, just announcement. However, this is still going to be a full-on analysis of the whole game itself. So guys, remember to stay tuned and subscribe for more content. But anyway, so guys, first off, this is, again, the analysis for the gameplay trailer. I really cannot wait to dive into this, though, because we're going to be breaking down every single component of this, so let's do it. Rating pending. Alright everyone, so you all saw the trailer. It looked honestly epic. Am I right? Because honestly, that looked really good actually, because real quick, I'm gonna turn off the volume and first off, let's look at this. Okay, first off, I'm not saying there's any lore aspects hidden in this part, but one, clearly, I think we all know the rating's going to be rated E, like all the other Splatoon games. Now, this is one of the scenes I do want to talk about, though, because this is a very interesting scene, in my opinion. Because look at the scene, and you'll actually see some pretty kind of semi-important details. So sorry about this, though. Still working on something, so when it comes to come to our thing here. So, one moment, and then we can continue on. Alright, is it good now? Is it good? Please, please, okay. Sorry. Anyways, still got some new things we still got to work out. Got some kinks in the system. Anyway, though, back to this. So, anyways, though, looking at this kind of seems interesting to me because looking at all of these, you can see that there are a bunch of barrels. There are barrels. There's a car, and then there's what look like trains. And then in this kind of dry desert area. Looking at this, it's interesting to see, because does this possibly mean something about human remnants? Is this one of the remains of human civilization, maybe? And then something else I'm seeing is that this is all written in squid language, whatever are the Inklings and Octarians and all of them speak is these caution labels or for tape. And looking at this is a pretty dry area. We don't really see much dry land in Splatoon. Looking back at the Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1 areas in the story mode, when you're going down in the sewers with our friend Captain Cuttlefish, you can remember and see clearly that the area around was never ever dry. There was always tons of water, no desert. So does this mean though that Splatoon might possibly be in different parts of the world? I don't know, because this also could mean here, look at these could be signs of human remains. Or not human remains, but maybe a destroyed city. The remains of what used to be a flourishing city. Now, looking at this part, this is very interesting, in my opinion. Looking here, we have our Inkling protagonist, you, the player, having a very interesting hood. It's a ragged cloak with a interesting pair of, I'd imagine, leather shoes. So clearly, here's the customization phase. But looking back, we can see a little bit of oxidized crud, as our character was probably here looking for a bit of shade. Now, looking at this character right here next to our Inkling, however, it's kind of interesting. But however, though, other thing I wanted to note is that, look here, I think it's going to be confirmed that we're going to get an Inkling bow, maybe even a crossbow. Which, if you have ever played a game series known as Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter Rise or Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunter Iceborne, the DLC for example, this could also introduce a new line of weapons like the bow gun, and well, the bow and the bow gun, which if anyone remembers from the Monster Hunter franchise, the bow gun was a special type of gun used in that world, which had two variations. The light regular version, which was sort of like a regular gun, or the heavy version, which was like a machine gun, and slowed your movement. So this could possibly mean that we can get a possible bow gun. Except that wouldn't make any sense now, would it? Because we already have something similar to the bow gun and the heavy bow gun, which is essentially which is essentially the standard splat and the standard blaster, because I don't know what other words to use for that. Anyways, the standard blaster and the machine guns variants, like for example the Hydra. Anyways, that does not matter. What matters is we get some new weapons. Then Little Buddy's turn. This is interesting. Does that mean that possibly we might have a sidekick for a story? Because in Splatoon, you all know that the story is optional, but does grant some special ability and some special items after completing Z story mode. Sometimes it'll also give you some new armor or new weapons, but it all depends. But however, though, it is nice to see that we are going to have, in fact, some more new weapons in Splatoon, like this bow, which it looks like we're not going to be carrying something for our holding ink. However, Little Buddy here, I think it might mean for story mode that perhaps we might have to return him, or we might have to return him to his home with with his fellow Samanoids, to where he can be raised on his own, or raised with his family. Or does this possibly mean that he can act as our sidekick either in multiplayer battles or in regular battle? Or does this also mean, too, that Splatoon 3 can introduce a new narrative where it's all about how we have to get it back and help the Salmonoid get home or something? But honestly, there's so much possibility with the Salmonoid, and we need a trailer for that. Another trailer just to help us. And then something else I'm seeing here is this train car. It kind of reminds me of the Splatoon 1's background, because if anyone remembers, in Splatoon 1, there's a sort of train running around the perimeter or of the area where you could walk around. And watch a boundary break sort of thing to see it if you want. But then something else that interests me is this tower. What is this tower? This tower cannot be the tower we see from Splatoon 1, now can it? Now, granted, mind you, yeah, I'm gonna go get Splatoon tower. Okay, I'm gonna go show the image. This will display, okay, so real quick, one thing to note here is the Inkopolis tower. I probably should have typed in Inkopolis, shouldn't I? Yeah. Inkopolis tower. Okay, so looking at the design, granted, it's too small to be the Inkopolis tower, but it does not mean it can be ruled out as a possibility. Now, looking back at this, look at the tower closely. This tower does resemble the design of that tower, except maybe a larger scale version. So could this mean we're traveling through the remains of human civilization, or Inkling civilization, or Octarian, or even Salmonoid civilization? Because we really don't know. However, this part also does interest me as well, because it's kind of like a sort of side-scroller, which is, it kind of makes it to where we're not in a third person, we can really have full control of the camera. It forces us into a side-scroller, which is kind of reminiscent of Pikmin or some of the games in the Mario series, where we're forced into a side-scroll kind of mission. But looking at this bow, it does seem very interesting. But it seems like for a story mode, or the tutorial, or the opening tutorial, we have to find a way to get back to the city. So it looks like we have to go on a train, which clearly there's some graffiti on the train. Looks like one of the normal trains. And fast forwarding a little, and just looking at this, it does seem a lot like the Salmonoid child, or the little friend, really has seen it before. It seems like it's new. Especially even though this train is a little bit broken down, you can tell by this broken off leather strap. And then a jellyfish wearing a shirt can also be spotted over here, wearing a tank top. I guess to survive the heat. Well, it does look like he's turning a little bit brownish, or a dirtier color of sorts. I guess you could say because maybe jellyfish aren't really meant to handle desert or hot climates. Then looking over here, it looks like maybe from the from the DLC of Splatoon 2, which introduces Octarians and the Octarian weapon sets and armor sets, that maybe some of the people from the train escaped and made it to land. However, something also interesting here is in this backdrop, you can see, while you're moving along, you also can see this train over here too. You can see the graph, and you can see it's a barren wasteland, and then there's this massive city as the camera fades to white, displaying the new version of Inkopolis. Which, looking at Inkopolis, it looks, well, like a city, like a bustling city. Except minus the bustling people in the streets. It looks like a giant skyward city. Which, if any of you live in a city such as Chicago, for example, or New York, you will know that in those kinds of cities, I'm not trying to offend anyone out there that lives in them, but it's kind of more upward. It's not small. It's not small buildings and that aren't very tall and but very spread out across the land. It's very up tall buildings and very tall structures, which seems very interesting to me, in my opinion, because could this also possibly predict that a bunch of time has once again passed in Splatoon, and from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2 to Splatoon 3? That means, again, there has to be maybe a time jump. It can't happen just right after, I'd imagine. However, though, it also does interest me, though, too, that maybe we aren't an inkling, because look at this back part. Again, this could just be the hairstyle, but this could also indicate maybe we're going to be, maybe we might have possibly the option to be an Octarian or an Inkling and get through either farther down the story mode or the regular game, or as soon as we start. However, something else I did want to note was going back a little. Again, another plane passes by overhead, which if you look at it, it kind of reminds me of the plane from the first game. So, if you look at the plane closely, the city has definitely evolved. The city has definitely grown, and it's getting bigger. And you also can see here a bunch of people are having their clothes hung out to dry here, too, using that space. But something else I'm noticing is look up here. Either that's moss, or that could be something else. Like, what else could that other material be? And does that mean that the ocean that once flooded the world might possibly have gone back down and dehydrated part of it? Anyways, going back here, it's interesting to see some of these. However, it's also nice to see that they're kind of taking a page from Japanese culture given in this design, which can be interpreted as a resemblance to a lucky cat. Or at least some of the design can be interpreted. At least that's how I interpret it anyway. And it's also kind of nice to see that maybe Nintendo might have worked in a Ghostbusters reference, because look at this. That right there, if you look at it closely, cut away a part of the curve and the triangle or tip and make it more curved, it can resemble Slimer. It can also resemble, and also if you look at it the right way, it'll also resemble Slimer because the teeth and the tongue, along with the weird eyes though. Granted, I know Slimer doesn't have the weird eyes, he has normal eyes, but still, I kind of interpret it and look at it kind of like it's from Ghostbusters. And also, of course, looking at this again, the reason I say it was from Chinese culture is if you look at it carefully, you can definitely see that there are some Chinese or Japanese these markings, like right there, towards the end. Which could this mean maybe we have a definite location confirmed for Splatoon? So maybe the location of where Splatoon takes place might actually now be confirmed. Because also, again, paper lanterns, mainly used in China/Japan area, again, paper lanterns are mainly there. And then again, if you look at these markings, these do kind of resemble Chinese markings from that kind of dialect. Because there's always a certain look with it. Wait, then going back again, because again, we have to analyze and break down every part of this trailer, or this announcement trailer anyway. Alright, then we also could see the giant Splatoon tower. So, does that mean this plaza is this giant city space? Because looking at the tower, it looks absolutely massive. It looks nothing like the Paris and the Tower of Paris-esque look. It doesn't have that kind of look. It looks like a giant office building, kind of, with a giant billboard kind of coming from it. And then also looking at this part, this looks like a highway, maybe? A highway or something for trains. Which, in my opinion, kind of reminds me of maybe some assets that they used from Splatoon 1 or 2 for just design. Then pausing here, we also can see a snake, a sort of snake, like one of those toy snakes you would see at a dollar store, maybe. you can see one of those weird snakes with a crown on its head. And then looking here, we also can see that this is a sort of open look of the plaza, except not all of it. So first off, first thing I want to look at is look at that structure. That looks kind of interesting. Maybe it could be a sort of hub or maybe one of the shops. Then looking at this one with a giant snake with a crown on its head, I'm looking down and that has to be an area for the shop because looking at that area, there's doors open. Also, I don't know if you can see my mouse though, but looking towards the bottom left of the picture. Actually, give me a minute. Maybe because I want to take a look at something. Okay, you guys can't see my mouse. Good. Okay, I just wanted to double check that because I didn't want to go like, oh, you can't see anything. Sorry. Alright, anyways though, so again, looking back at this structure, it seems very interesting. Like maybe it could be the kind of area where you would see a broadcast, like the opening game broadcast. Because if any of you have played Splatoon 1 or 2, which I am willing to bet you have, you will remember that in Game 1, there was Callie and Marie who did their intro with the stage maps and current stuff and current events about the game for multiplayer stuff, and then also slight tidbits of story just for the times where the Zapfish was stolen or returned. However, though, continuing to look, you also can see that there are a bunch of other taller skyscrapers. So it looks like this city has definitely turned into a giant bustling city. However, though, it looks like we might have some slight open world ability considering there aren't many gates of boxes or such. And then looking at this part, which really got me. So this is clearly the player. So looking back at this, does that mean that since they're in a more desert environment, the maps are going to be centered around the desert? And does that mean that they're going to be cutting back on some of the maps? Because if so, that's going to be very unfortunate for us. However, something else I do want to know is look at these players and look at what they're standing on. Or, in this case, of the sniper, what she's holding onto for dear life. So, for one, these all have the respawn emblems that the normal respawn point for multiplayer matches or single-player games or maps would have. So it looks like whoever invented all this stuff found a way to make these things float and fly and be able to do some other things. Because clearly, as long as your ink is set to the color of the respawn point, you're able to walk around in it. So I guess in order to stop the invincibility shield, which was a problem in Splatoon 1 or 2, which if you're trying to get as many kills as possible, by retreating to the respawn shield, you are deemed invincible, because you would be protected by a shield that the enemy players could not hit you in. No enemy ink could be inside of it, and no enemy players can even get in it. Not even bombs. Because bombs, if I remember correctly, blew up immediately as soon as they hit that shield. So I think that they're trying to also make it to where some problems in Splatoon 2 and 1 are now being eliminated. Because once again, as I'm saying, the problem with if the respawn points of Splatoon 1 and 2 was that since you had that invincibility shield up, and as long as you retreated back there, players could no longer kill you, or, quote, splat you. Because ultimately a splat is, in a sense, a kill, because it is a sort of shooter game. Anyways, moving on. So, again, since it looks like we're going to Splatoon, and the devs of Splatoon are trying to fix that problem, they made these flying respawn anchors. So it looks like these respawn anchors are essentially, we stand on platforms, and then it might shoot us out. But ultimately, I don't think we can or will be able to retreat back here on them by using the map feature. But also, real quick, let's also note, because look at this as well. So I'm going to slow the speed a little bit by, let's say, 20 to 25. So freezing it here, looking back, it looks like certain. Okay, for one, going back a little, it looks like we're gonna have the slosher is still in the game. The nozzle weapon was also still in the game, and so is the minigun, the standard splat blaster, along with some new weapons. Because this one over here looks pretty darn new. If anyone remembers the splash damage effect that some weapons had, this would be kind of reminiscent of it. And you could say that possibly this blaster is maybe a bigger version with a bigger effect, but could also be a new one. Followed by a new sniper rifle, which I really cannot wait for, and then also the bow. However, it looks like we are definitely going to be able to fly out of these, so we cannot respawn in it. Now, looking back at some other things, we are going to be able to be shot out of it, and the bow will operate just like a normal bow would. Except, it looks like here, there's also going to be a charging feature. However, also continuing looking back, it seems like that weapon, though, is kind of going to operate like a Rainmaker would, except slightly better. Along with some new features, too. However, it does also seem like we are also going to keep the Stingray, which we have from Game 1, and now Game 2. However, it also does seem like, too, from this next scene I just saw, we might also be getting back one of Splatoon 1's best weapons. But also looking back at this, it looks like a crab bomb. The crab bomb, though, might be sort of like the auto bombs, perhaps, or something similar or different. That is still yet to be determined. However, looking back at this cannon definitely reminds me of the cannon you would see from Splatoon 1. This was one of the specials that was eliminated from the game or worked into something else due to the fact that the Nintendo Switch didn't have a secondary pad on the controller. So you couldn't press anywhere on the map to launch it, for example. Wait, I'm thinking the torpedo, sorry. Anyways, this one was definitely cut out of the game, but it looks like they might have actually added it back. However, it doesn't look like there's a tornado effect. It looks like it's just a strong shot, maybe like a Rainmaker. But it looks like that is definitely special, given all the characters and what they had as far as weapons go. But going back to this one, I think this is definitely going to have to be maybe an auto bomb or one of the new special quest objectives. But this weapon definitely right here piques my interest because it does not shoot because it might shoot like a Rainmaker, but does not shoot like its original counterpart, like its original predecessor from Game 1. But anyways, though, I think that's about it for the full game dissection. That's all I got for the dissection, though, and please make sure to stay tuned by ringing the notification bell after you subscribe to my channel. And also like this video if you like more content like this. However, though, I definitely do think we will have to look further into it. Because at least this is, anyway, my dissection of the video. If you like the video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and then